Hello, today we're going to go through an optimized Ranger build for the open beta playtest of the Daggerheart gaming system. Put together some information, did some math, tried to figure out how to build characters. So what I came up with was a close combat Ranger for the Ranger build. And the priority in combat is going to be to do a lot of damage. Also to be a tank using the Evasion stat. And have enough mobility to move around the battlefield, and some support features to help out the party. We're going to try to balance damage, tanking, survivability, and have good out of combat. We're going to choose presence as our secondary feature. It's not what you'd probably build with the stereotypical Ranger, but yeah, we want to have a little bit of fun with this. It looks like the secondary stat is up for grabs. So we're going to make the Ranger also the face of the party in some way, just to see if we can. This is not going to be a sly, sneaky, roguish type Ranger. This is going to be more of a Robin Hood if Robin Hood wielded two weapons and went into hand-to-hand combat. But more of a charismatic, leadership style of Ranger. The Ancestry, there are a ton of good Ancestries that you could use for Ranger. Katari has this reroll that you can spend a stress and reroll your hope die. I really don't like this ability. Statistically, you only get to reroll one die. It costs you a stress and doesn't really guarantee success. So Halfling is better. There's a lot of things that are better than Katari, but it seems like the recommendation or the playtest character they built was Katari. Firbolg gets a chance to ignore stress. This character is going to be using stress often as we can, so Firbolg would be interesting, might give us a chance to do more with stress in a particular day. Fairy, we have stress for evasion. We're going to build a character with a lot of evasion. This might be nice. But to be honest, I don't want to have to spend stress here because we're going to be spending stress on other things for the skills for the Rangers, so we're going to hold off on that Fairy. Elf has an interaction with long rest that's nice. It lets you clear your stress and potentially also clear your hit points at the same time, leaving your second action up to fix armor or do other things. So that could be good. Demons prevent fear, but again, it costs stress. We've already got a stress mechanics with the Ranger. Goblins and Halflings are just good, so there's a lot of options for a Ranger, but we're going to pick the Simia. And it's simply because they get +1 agility. Everything about this character... +1 evasion. The +1 evasion is really a big deal with this build, especially in the lower levels. So we're just going to selfishly pick this, have +1 evasion for the whole game. It also has some, bonuses to climbing and things like that, so that's not a bad feature as well. But we're really just here for the evasion. The community, Orderborn, gets an improved chance. You get to roll your hope die as a d20 once per short rest. It's super nice feature. It's really interactive. You can use it on a very important roll to, I won't say guarantee success, but really make the statistics good. Also, I don't see any reason why this can't interact with the death mechanics. So if you're ever forced to make a death move, you can choose the roll the chance, change your die to a d20, and you get something like a 78% chance that your hope die is going to be higher than your fear die, and you'll be able to live without losing your character. Obviously, it doesn't give you a guarantee of success, and even though the statistics might be pretty good for it, we don't want to really take chances and throw our character away. So the Orderborn is more to just get an interaction where we can land a hit, especially when we're trying to establish focus on a particular enemy. We can use this to make sure that we get that focus established and hopefully gain a hope while we do it. If you do use it for death mechanics, though, check with your GM, make sure it's going to work. Orderborn statements, you get to pick 3, so we pick things like strike fast, strike hard. In combat, that can cover almost anything, so if you want to use this Orderborn to try to maximize a hit roll in combat, it feels like you should be able to use it like that. Give nature her due for social settings. Persevere against all odds would be your defy death statement, but whatever you want to do. But basically, we're going to try to set up statements that'll give us a high chance of success. We named our character Feral. We just spelled it differently, so hey, it's high fantasy. So it's an Order-born Simia, so hey, we grew up among other Order-born Simia, I suppose. The idea, I think, for this character is that they became efficient with a bow, started to hunt with a sword. That also became easy, so this character gets to the point where he stops hunting altogether. He's not just killing stuff, he just tracks for fun, stalks his prey. He's a very popular person with his village. That gives us an excuse to build presence as a secondary stat. So agility for the primary stat, and we'll use presence as the secondary and try to do some party negotiation and politics and things like that. And we're going to do a ranger, subclass wayfinder. We've got a hope sync and ranger's focus. We can always throw a hope and get the focus up. It increased damage, and also once we've got the focus, we can discontinue the focus to reroll, especially if you fail with fear badly and it's a bad time to give the GM fear. Just give up your focus and trigger the reroll. So it's a powerful skill, definitely worth it. You also have Apex Predator that gets you +1 to your proficiency, gives you an extra weapon damage die. At lower levels, let's say through the first 2 tiers of character building, up through level 4 and then up through level 7, those tiers, this is very useful. When you get to the final tier, your proficiency is already high enough that it feels like giving up stress for another D10 becomes less worthwhile, but we'll have a different place to put our stress by then. So this is definitely a character that's going to use stress to the max. We're going to use agility as the main stat. We use presence and instinct as the +1. We're going to dump finesse. We don't want to be a rogue with this character. And specifically, I mean, just the way I'm thinking about the character, he specifically doesn't want to be a rogue. Not sneaky, more just bold and walks right up and gets stuff done. Weapons, we're going to have a rapier in the main hand, a short sword in the secondary hand. Short sword has a feature called paired, but I don't see where the short sword actually has to be paired with any other short sword, so we can put that in the offhand. The rapier gives +1 agility. We're going to find out that agility is just cash money for this particular character. It's going to give us an increased agility, increased chances to hit, everything that we're looking for. And you could just leave that rapier sit in your main hand and never use it in your life, and it still gives you +1 agility. Meanwhile, we use the short sword in our offhand. That's the weapon that we'll attack with. It's an agility-based weapon and does D10 damage. And, we're very satisfied with that. So that's how we'll plan to set up the weapons. Armor, we're going to use leather for +1 evasion. Now we have very light armor and no shield, and this character really doesn't plan to use that armor that much. We're just planning for the enemies to miss us most of the time. If we do get hit, we're just going to use that armor to try to drop it from 2 hit points to 1 hit point when we can, things like that. Otherwise, we're not too worried about the armor mechanics and saving our life. We're really going to try to do that with evasion. Starting inventory, pick what you like, healing potion or stress potion, whatever you want for the flavor of your character. Domain cards, we're going to grab Nimble. That gives us the ability to add our agility to our evasion. And Rapier's given us +1 agility, so that's +1 more evasion, just for holding it in our hand. Gifted Trackers also, it's an interesting skill, might give us some out-of-combat information, and then if we do go into combat with something we've tracked, it gives us another boost to evasion. And that puts your character at 17 evasion, 10 for the class, 1 for Simia, 3 for your agility, 1 for your armor, and puts us at 15. And then +2 if it's a tracked enemy, so 17 evasion against anything that you've tracked. So that's about an 80% miss rate at level 1. It's pretty strong. We could pick experiences that go along with our stats, but I'm going to really pick things that go along with the role play of this character. So again, we're doing presence, so we're going to put something up called Monkey Business. Simia are monkey type characters. So let's just play into that, and I capitalize business. It's not monkey business, it's monkey business. he means business. So when he's persuading, negotiating, things like that, you're a monkey of business, and get a +2 if you spend a hope. Monkey C, maybe that's insight stuff, perception, things like that. Tracking, maybe if you need an extra plus to track and things like that nature. At level 2, we're going to level up, get another experience level. Let's say something like never broke a bone, so that maybe agility-based checks, balance, movement, acrobatics, we can never break a bone. Again, when you only have a +1, we don't plan to improve this skill, so spending a hope for a +1 is really pretty lame. So these experiences are more for character and, let's say, flavor, roleplay, than they are for in-game mechanics, but you know, you never know. You may use it someday. We'll level up proficiency and the traits, and again, agility as our main and presence as our secondary. That's going to give us yet another evasion, because we get another agility. We're going to take the domain feature Natural Familiar. That's going to allow us to summon a little pet that'll help us in combat, do a little more damage. Level 3, we're going to take another stress slot so that we have more stresses that we can undergo. And we'll take another evasion +1 straight up. You can level up either an armor slot or evasion. We'll pick the evasion +1. At level 3, we'll take Towering Stalk for our domain feature. Level 4, we're going to boost up some other traits because we can, and we're going to take our experience, and we're going to take those original 2 experiences, and we're going to level them up to +3 and +2 respectively. Then they become actually worth using sometimes, so I think you have to invest at least 1 experience level up to really make these feel like it's worth a hope. So we'll do that. And then I will take Healing Field. If you look at the boost ability, the domain card called Boost, a bone card, it is really good. You get to launch off of a nearby ally, go to far distance, make a melee attack, do extra damage. It's really a good skill. The problem is that we already have stress sinks for our character now, and we'll have more stress sinks later. So I think using stress for this is too much stuff using stress. We've already got a limited pool, and I don't think we need more stuff to burn up stress. So I like Boost, but I'm going to take Healing Field and just use that to help the party heal up hit points, do more combats in a day, or at least feel less threatened. And we can do it, so why not? The gameplay in levels 1 through 4, we're just going to head up to the front in melee. Especially level 2 and beyond, we're going to summon that familiar. It's going to follow us into combat. And at level 2, we can already use the Ranger's Focus, a familiar, an Apex Predator. And on the second turn that we take, we're going to be able to do potentially 3d10 plus 2d6 damage. Even without other bonuses, that's just average of 23 damage at level 2. So that's really good. And the goal is, at this level with tier 0 and tier 1 enemies, we should often be able to do 3 hit points to the enemies. The tier 0 enemies are between 10 and 25 for their severe threshold, so we'll often be above that. And tier 1 enemies are 15 to 30. There's a lot of them that are like 15, 18, even 20. There's not that many of them that go up to 30 on their severe, so we'll be doing 3 damage per hit a lot at this tier. It's a really strong character. I mean, it comes out of the gate so strong on damage. So at this level, your primary role is really to do that high damage and be a light tank. Our evasion at this point is up to about 20, which is nice, but it still gives the enemies some chances to hit us. We're not, let's say, immune to getting hit in combat. It's just pretty unlikely. I like to upgrade armor. It does drop an evasion if we use a different armor, but for this build, I suggest we switch over to spiked armor, and it just helps with the damage a little bit more. So something that we can use to boost up our damage even more and try to guarantee that 3 hit points per hit at this tier of gameplay. Be careful, even if you're given good gear, avoid stuff that reduces agility or evasion. And that rapier in your main hand with just that +1 agility is really a big deal. Don't give that up lightly, even if your GM offers you a better weapon for your main hand. For level 5, we get to the next tier. So now we get to reset and, repick from a new tier. So at level 5, we're going to get another experience, pick what you like, give nature her due. It goes along with the Orderborn stuff that we've already picked, and gives us a +1 maybe to nature stuff, things like that. Level up proficiency and traits. Again, every time we hit a tier, statistically, the thing that makes the most difference is a proficiency and a trait. So better to hit, and hitting harder every single time it comes up. We'll take Thorn Skin. This is going to be one of our feature abilities that we're going to keep for the rest of our character build. We'll get rid of Natural Familiar. Thorn Skin lets us stack up a number of D6s. It can be used to reduce damage, and if it's damage that's dealt in melee, we get to deal that back. So let's say something hits you really hard in melee, does like 22 damage to you or something, and you just need to get that down low enough that maybe you could, together with your armor, you can drop it down to a 1 hit point loss. So you take 3 or 4 of the dice off of this Thorn Skin, you roll them, you get, let's say it's 4 dice and you get 14. You reduce the damage by 14, manage it with your armor if needed, and then you get to do that 14 damage back, which will probably deal 1 or 2 hit points back to the enemy. So if they do manage to hit you, they get punished for it. It's pretty nice. Level 6, we're going to take proficiency again, maximize it. We'll have 4 proficiency at this tier, and then we'll take +1 to evasion. We'll take the rapid riposte, and again, this is just an outstanding feature for this class. Rapid riposte says if they miss you with an attack in melee, then you can hit them back for the cost of 1 stress. This will become our stress sink, and it all makes sense. As we hit 4 proficiency, that's the point where using a stress for the extra proficiency off of Apex Predator has become less and less impactful. And now, if we use that stress instead for a rapid riposte, we rely on our high evasion. Something tries to hit us in close combat. When they miss us, we can mark a stress and hit them back with our weapon, and that is massive. That's going to be dealing damage back to the enemy. It does not, as far as I can tell, does not give action token back to the GM. So basically, you get to do damage out of sequence on an enemy's turn that doesn't give the GM other resources to use. Statistically, that's massive in this game. When you take a turn, you're giving the GM a token to use against you. In this case, the GM uses that token, tries to hit you, misses, gets nothing out of it, and you smack them back. This is a characteristic that is going to be very powerful in the game. Now, if we find out later that that gets clarified, or maybe I missed it, that rapid riposte is considered an action and it's going to put a token on the tracker, still it's an out-of-sequence action that does damage for them missing you, which still seems really powerful. We'll put away Towering Stalk. We'll get that back in the vault. Level 7, we'll take a +1 to evasion. Again, just keep stacking the evasion. And we'll upgrade our subclass at this point to the next level in Ranger. We'll take Bone Touched, and this gives us +1 agility, and as long as we have most of our skills from Bone, which we will for the rest of our build. We're going to keep Nimble, Rapid Riposte, and Bone Touched. That's 3 out of 5, so we're always going to have Bone Touched active. That +1 agility is feeding into our evasion, and again, it's too too good to be passed up. All right, so gameplay in this tier 5 to 7, we're starting to turn more into a tank. We're still really good on damage, but it's single target damage, and it's best against the target that we have focused. But in terms of tanking now, we're getting harder and harder to hit, and it's pretty good and pretty crazy. Damage at this level, we have 4 proficiency, so 4d10 plus 1d6, and that's without a magic weapon. At this tier, you could easily have a weapon that has +2 or +4 more damage on top of that. But let's say you still need to add Apex sometimes. You can be in the range of 30 damage. Against tier 1 enemies, you can often hit severe. Against tier 2 enemies, 25 to 70 on severe, you're not often going to get that 3 hit point hit. but it's really going to do 2 hit points almost every time you swing. That's what we're looking for. We don't want to drop down into the range of only doing 1 hit point when we do damage. And I think we're securely in the range where if we do damage, it's going to be 2 hit points of damage to the enemies. We're going to not be a target for the Game Master. Once he figures out our gimmick, the Game Master is simply going to stop attacking this character whenever they can. If they hit you, you get retaliation with Thorn Skin. If they miss you, you get a rapid riposte for free damage. So if they hit you, it's bad. If they miss you, it's bad. I think the GM will just look for other targets. So if you can mark a target, get in the way, focus the main boss on a particular fight, I think your party will really be in good shape. Wayfinder specialization is going to add agility again to our evasion on the focus target. So at this point, we're at 26 with the character that I've built here. Depending on how you gear your character and what you do, maybe that's 23. But still, being able to have 26 evasion against the target that you focused is insane. At this level, average tier 2 enemies only have +3 to +5 attack. So once they are focused, we're pretty much out of range. If they get advantage, we're back in range and they have chances to hit us, but it's pretty low chances. So even against pretty tough monsters, they're going to struggle to hit us. At this tier, you should be offered improved weapons or maybe even advanced weapons. You gotta be careful here. The +1 agility on the rapier, if you look at all the places that +1 agility makes a difference, it's evasion. It's our chance to hit with our main skill. It's if we have to make an agility movement roll. It's an extra 1d6 on Thorn Skin every short rest, so 6d6 on the Thorn Skin. It's really, that extra d6 can be a big deal. It's every short rest. It's 3 times a day. It's damage that's being reduced. It gives you so much more control. So giving up that agility off that rapier, I think, would be hard. Putting a short sword in each hand, you can attack with the main hand. The offhand gives damage to the main hand. You get like +11 to your damage. It seems really good, but all the places that agility is used, I don't think you can ever give it up. At least I wouldn't want to if it was my character. Wayfinder specialization is going to add agility again, so just remember that +1 agility on the rapier is doubled against targets that you have focused with your Wayfinder specialization. Last tier, 8 to 10, we're going to pick up another experience. Let's just say Voice of the Poor. Now we're truly Robin Hood, rob from the rich, give to the poor. We need a green hat for our monkey at this point. Level 8, we're going to level up proficiency and traits. Again, every time we hit a new tier, that proficiency and adding the traits are statistically the best thing to do, so we do it. Rejuvenating barrier, we're going to put that in the vault, so we won't have it in our loadout, but if we take a short rest and we think we need it for an upcoming situation in the game, we can take it out of the vault, put it into our loadout during a rest. Level 9, we're going to level up proficiency again, max it out at 6. We'll take +1 to evasion again, proficiency and evasion being the thing that we're doing. We'll take last leg, put it in the vault. Again, this is if we've had a couple tough combats and we think we might need it for the next one, take it out of the vault, put it in your loadout. And then at level 10, we're going to upgrade the subclass finally and get +1 to evasion. And we're going to grab the Tempest for control. We've kept the gifted tracker available this whole time, that little +2 from tracked enemies. Our evasion is so high now that really doesn't matter. But it's such a fun and flavorful out-of-combat skill that I felt like it was always useful. But we have to keep 3 bone abilities in our loadout. So when we get Tempest from that domain, we have to get rid of the gifted tracker. Sad face. Alright, so gameplay at level 8 to 10, we're a frontline melee character, and at this point we're about as good of a tank as you could expect to be with evasion in the game. We have good damage against single targets, use focus, high proficiency. Let's say we have a legendary short sword in our offhand by this point, just with a focus on 6d10, 1d6, plus 6 from the weapon. It's 42 average damage with a legendary short sword. And again, the goal is to do 2 hit points with every swing that we do. 42 is securely in there. We can even hit some tier 2 enemies for severe damage, some tier 3 enemies, but a lot of tier 3 enemies are looking like 60 or 70 on the severe damage. Tier 3 enemies, some of them even have plus 40 on the 40 plus on the major. But with 42 damage, and again, we can add Apex Predator if we have to against really tough enemies. But we should be in that threshold of always doing 2 damage every time we swing. We got to do that to stay ahead of what we give to the GM. So we're on track for that. In terms of tanking, by this point, it's just gotten ridiculous. If the GM attacks us, we're going to have attrition through Thornskin and Rapid Riposte. They miss us. We use a stress. We attack them back. It's 6d6. I mean, 42 damage on a Retribution strike at this point is massive. The Wayfinder specialization is going to add the agility again against the focus target, so against a single boss. We have a 23 standing agility, and that's not with the leather armor. That's with just some kind of armor that doesn't take away evasion from us. So we have 23 standing evasion. We get 7 agility, so we get plus 7 more against our focus target. And I didn't see anything in the game that had plus 10 to attack. If your monster gets advantage, then they're back in the game. Maybe they roll a 5 or 6 and a 19, and then all of a sudden they're back to hitting us. But they need advantage and a really high roll. It's very hard to hit us if we're focusing, and that's not all. We'll get to the final layer of this in a second. As far as up to this point, it hasn't mattered too much the order that we go in, depending on our party. There's no initiative tracker, so anybody can go first. Once we get in this final tier, especially when we hit level 10, we're really going to want this ranger character to go first if we can. Open combat, use a hope, get somebody focused up, control one of the adversaries, and use that initial hope. If you need to use Orderborn to make sure that the DM doesn't get more fear, whatever it is, this character has so much control, it's crazy. And then with the final ranger specialization at level 10, we can even prevent the GM from getting hope if we do, just skip the hope and prevent the fear from going to the GM. So pretty good control with this character, and marking that enemy, even if we do give the GM a turn right away, we need to have that focus up. So we'll have 30 evasion against enemy that we have focused, 23 against everybody else. And if somebody else comes up to hit us, let's say there's a second big character in a big battle and they come up to hit us and we don't have a mark, so we don't have enough evasion, we can use Bone Touch to mark an armor slot, get our proficiency in evasion. So we're at 30 evasion against the focus target. We can have 36. I believe that's unhittable. I don't think that can be hit for the cost of 1 armor slot. So mark an armor slot and add plus 6 with Bone Touched. Against the character that's not focused, you have 23. Adding 6 is 29. Again, even characters that have plus 7 and advantage, boy, that's got to be a high roll. That has got to be a high roll to hit a 29. So again, if you're playtesting characters and you want to do a level 10 one-shot and you use this character, it seems like evasion's pretty busted, but let me know your feedback. Maybe there's things that I don't know. Hurricane Tempest is your level 10 ability. Hurricane just seems like a ridiculously overpowered spell in the game. You choose every character in far range. You do a spell cast to determine who you hit. And we've got plus 7 to our agility. We could have plus 8. I think there's a trinket in the game that adds 1 agility. Maybe there's something else. Maybe you could get it up to plus 9. I don't know all of the gear very well yet, but plus 7 or plus 8 certainly seems possible. Plus 7 is possible for sure. We have it built. But at this point, that averages a 20 on your cast, which is massive. And enemies can't move against the wind, so you can just shut off like half the battlefield. Enemies can't move that direction. It's removed by 3 fear. And as far as I can tell, when I read the card, it doesn't say it's got a limited number of uses. GM uses 3 fear to remove it, and you just cast it again. It feels like one of the most broken abilities in the game. If tanking isn't an issue, you can, let's say several of your characters built tanky characters anyway, and you don't really have to serve that tanking role. You can swap out all those evasion for extra stress, use your apex predator more often, get more retaliation strikes, whatever you need to do there. So there's some flexibility in the build if you don't need all that evasion. And again, we've got all that, and we still have a secondary substat or secondary trait that we can use, and we chose presence. We're doing face things for the party. We've got a +3 to certain social things with our experiences. So it's fun. I mean, we can be the face of the party. If somebody else is already the face of the party, easy, just swap it out for something else. Strength is good to prevent being restrained as much in combat. Knowledge if nobody else in the party wants to know things. Or you could do finesse if nobody wants to have finesse characters. You don't have a rogue in the party or whatever. Sure, you take finesse and sneak more. There's plenty of things you can do. This secondary stat really, with characters like this, your primary stat has to be maxed out, but your secondary stat can really be for fun and roleplay, it seems like. So in summary, a standing agility of 23, really that takes away so much of what your enemies can do. And like I said, you could probably get that, you could get it to 24 if you put back on leather armor. You could probably get it to 25 with that +1 agility trinket somewhere. Adversaries averaging +5 to hit really aren't going to hit you very often. And when they miss you, you punish them back. It's crazy. Add in focus and bone touch, you're out of reach. I didn't see anything in the adversary section. I went through the tier 3 characters. I didn't see anything with a +16 to hit. So I think this character, when it uses all of its skills, is untouchable. Now, it's a limited amount of times. You can only have 3 at this. The way I've got the character built, you only have 3 armor slots, and you can't guarantee that the thing attacking you is focused. But generally, still, you have 23 against everything, which seems really good. We're still dealing 2 hit points per activation, and we're looking to get an off-turn evaluation probably once or twice in between our turns. If we're in melee and focused on it, and as we said at the start, once you focus on something, the rest of the party can pretty much leave it alone. Well, if that's the case and they're leaving your target alone, that target swings at you, misses, gets retaliated against, it's really something else. In addition to all that, we have this level 10 Tempest ability. Controls half the battlefield. Let's say there's monsters approaching from the front. There's monsters ambushing you from behind. The monsters in front aren't a problem. That's what you intended to fight anyway. The monsters coming from behind to attack your casters, oh my goodness, that's a problem, right? We just turn around. We target everything in far range. We have massive Tempest spellcasting score +7 just from our agility. We could add stats to that. We could use hope to use one of our experiences. Somebody else in the party could throw in a help action, and we get 20 to 25 on this roll and hit everything. And those characters can't move against the wind. So that ambush, all the casters have to do is just walk away from melee range, and those characters can't move against the wind until the GM spends 3 fear. It's not limited to once per rest. The way that it's worded is just, it's got to change. It's got to change, or 2 characters with Tempest. One will cast a Tempest in one direction, one will cast a Tempest in the other direction, and you can just sit there with long-ranged weapons and kill everything, and it can't move into melee with any of your characters. It's pretty dumb. So, yeah, I think this has to have a once per short rest or once per long rest added to it, or a stress cost or something, because as it's worded, it's really ridiculous. That's going to wrap up the Ranger for the open beta playtest Daggerheart character. I hope this gives you something to think about, something to enjoy. If you're playing a one-shot, you can figure out this character at any level through the Daggerheart Nexus. And do remember, if you build a character on here, there is a little bit of a trick that some people may not know. If you're new to this and you're building your first character, you do have to negotiate the equipment feature. So if you click down here, you can see that there's effects and features, and then right next to it is equipment. You have to go to the equipment and actually, in fact, put a check in the box for the equipment to be equipped and take effect on your sheet. But you go in there, you can manage equipment, you can just add equipment from the list, you can see what equipment's available in the game, mess around with it, see if you can find better sets of equipment, other things that make this character even stronger than it already is. But, you know, here's looking at level 10, you've got, you know, the 23 evasion, you've only got 6 armor, but we're not using that much, 41 severe damage threshold, 18 on major. So if we get hit, we'll often take 2 hit points of damage, but we shouldn't be getting hit very much. We've got our experiences over here, our legendary short sword here is 6d10 plus 6, and then other bonuses. You know, we've got the loadout of effects and features down here. If you haven't used this, it's really an easy way to play the game. They even have the duality dice set up in a way where you can roll, and it just tells you 10 with hope, and makes things really simple. So if you haven't checked that out already, get on over there, build your character at the Daggerheart Nexus. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to hit that like button on the way out if you didn't hit it on the way in, and I hope to see you in the next video.